Okay, thank you for the invitation to speak tonight. My name is Jaron Lubin. I work with Moshe Safdie at Safdie Architects just down the street. And I know nothing about urban air mobility. But as an architect and an urban designer working in an architectural practice, I thought that I'd share some of our work and some of the insights from a kind of architectural urban design perspective, looking all the way back 50 years at the founding of our practice in the early 60s. And this is a sketch that Moshe did when he was 25 years old, described as a meeting place. His first sketches of habitat, which you know in Montreal is the Expo. It's 50 years of practice thinking about the future, thinking about rethinking cities, thinking about future cities, thinking about mobility in cities, living in cities, the quality of life, and all of our projects start with the idea of what does it feel like to be inside these buildings? What does it feel like to be a human in a city? And most of the decisions we make on all of our buildings are founded in this kind of humanist way of thinking. Expo 67, 50 years ago, as a real amazing meeting place of ideas with Bucky Fuller's American Pavilion, Moshe's Habitat Project, others. And the original vision for Habitat I was thinking about Habitat to talk to Habitat tonight because it has a lot of horizontal surfaces for drones to land on, I guess. And the idea here is challenging typology. It's a challenge to the tall tower building typology that we're reacting against here, not only 50 years ago, but in our current work. Are there other models? Andrea said that an airport is a pretty young typology. We think that tall buildings are also pretty young. And so this idea of fractalizing the tall building into more livable and the theme of For Everyone a Garden, which is something that we're very interested in. And that was the built habitat in Montreal, but there was other unbuilt habitats that are even more exceptional and interesting and exciting. This was one proposed in New York, and another one also proposed for New York, my two favorites. And this was Moshe 50 years ago. The shape of things to come on the cover of Newsweek. This was a utopian, like forward-looking time about, and a lot of emphasis on what could a city be. But now. This is a picture of Hong Kong pretty recently, and congestion, and do we have the tools? I mean, the question that we often ask as we write and think about these places is, do we have the tools as designers to actually make a great impact on our cities? And so we're constantly speculating in our practice on how you could take traditional models of vertical extrusions of towers and rethink them, both residential typologies, mixed-use typologies, airports too. I'll get to that a little bit later. And it comes to in a series of research propositions with tall buildings that are broken down into stepped structures with large urban windows and more kind of three-dimensional spatial networks where we try to give everyone a terrace and an opportunity to live both indoors and outdoors. And also we're thinking a lot about multiplying the ground plane as other architects are as well, and trying to think of different new metrics to quantify or qualify the merits of tall buildings aside from their height. And even like organizing the projects in our office by height just doesn't seem sensible anymore. So how do you talk to this different model of understanding tall structures in the city? In Singapore, I've been personally working there for 15 years, and we've done a lot of work there. And I think one of the things we've learned there is that when you have the cooperation with an intelligent authority, the government authority, the URA, you can do great things. They offer simple incentives. For instance, on the right-hand side, there's an extract from a guidebook that they hand out to anyone who's doing work in Singapore that says, if you provide sky terraces in your building, we'll allow you to go taller and we'll give you a GFA incentive that you can build more. So you're kind of insane as a developer not to do this. And then in the middle, there's a recent, this was in the Straits Times in their newspaper, so they're very good at PR. They're saying, you know, they're offering new incentives about cladding all their buildings with greenery. And so simple incentives can give you very great results as applied over the large scale. And we're very curious whether, you know, we can create an amazing shopping experience, for instance, like one of these three, whether it's in Singapore or Ginza or Spain, maybe in speculating as to whether we could do that on top of one of our buildings one day. And so very quickly, I'm going to show three buildings: Marina Bay Sands, which started as a dream and transformed the entirety of the Marina Bay district. And I think from the perspective of a very, very large program, 10 million square feet, we had to break it down from not the scale of architecture, but from kind of an urban design perspective, breaking down the program into more manageable bits. And I think from the perspective of the topics that we'll talk about tonight and tomorrow at the roundtable, I thought about the notion of this duplicating of the ground plane. Here on the right-hand side is the atrium, the ground floor of the hotel, matched with this Skypark that we created together with Peter Walker's office. And you know, it's primarily for hotel guests. It's a phenomenal resort experience overlooking the city with gardens floating above the hotel. And you get this amazing 360-degree panorama experience up there from the signature swimming pool and the gardens. And so, yeah, drones could definitely land there. And when you Google Moshe Safdie drone, you get these images, which I found last night. And it appears that, and this made me think that, of course, it was such an opportunity to be here today and tomorrow, because these exercises of suggesting that these drones and unmanned aircraft land on buildings that we've designed without our kind of participation, wouldn't it be really amazing to sit down with the people who are coming up with these ideas and talk through what the impact could be? Another project recently completed is a project called Sky Habitat. It's a purely residential project, but again, lots of stepping. There's 3 common sky bridges that, because the units aren't humongous, we've provided these 3 bridges for the people who live there and their common spaces. And in fact, because of the GFA incentive by the government, we built them over and above the maximum GFA for the project. So they were part of that incentive program that I mentioned earlier. This is a quick slide of a mixed-use project that we proposed in Hangzhou recently, again, multiplying the ground plane for mostly office spaces and suggesting a series of common public spaces that could be shared between office workers and people going up to different restaurants at different levels. Okay, so the final couple slides I'll just show you is this project that opened last week in Singapore. It's called the Jewel. It's at the center of all the terminals at Changi Airport. The idea here is that a lot of people actually go to Changi Airport. The public go there. They hang out at the airport in the departures hall. They do their homework. They walk around. They take their wedding photos. And so the airport said, we're going to take this parking lot that's in front of Terminal 1. We're going to do a competition to give a space back to all these people. The brief had retail, a retail component, about 1 million square feet of retail. And they wanted some kind of attraction, and they offered different ideas, whether it should be like a dinosaur theme park or some kind of themed thing. We came with this idea that the attraction should be a big public space. It's a huge public garden at the center of the airport. It serves the Singaporeans who live in the neighborhood. 80%. It's also the gateway now as you arrive from Terminal 1. I won't go through in too much detail. It's retail below and with a stack of a garden on top. This is a picture that we took last week at the opening. So you arrive from the baggage claim just like Logan, and you like see this experience, and it's, you know, it's quite pleasant. And this was a photo that we just pulled from Instagram last night, which is just to show the celebration of the locals enjoying this space. We're very proud that we've created this interface between the public directly into the heart of the airport, and I think that this could be subject of some discussion during the roundtable tomorrow. Thanks.